Church intro video. Church intro video.
Still live.
Church intro video.
We do stuff during the countdown every week. For months we've been doing stuff during the countdown.
Church intro video. Church intro
Church
video.
Intro video.
20 seconds of Bill talking to his wife. 20 seconds of
Right?
Bill talking to his wife.
Because she was like, oh, you're not really live. You're just like soft live, right? No, we're live.
I don't know why my stream preview is not working. Show player. Oh, I must have closed it at some point. Okay, church intro video. Church intro video. Church intro video. I don't know why I'm still singing the same song.
I know, because like there's songs playing, and you're singing something else.
Yep.
So it's like,
Yep.
Vex on? Oh, Vex off.
Vex on, vex off. Vex on, vex off. Vex on, vex off. Vex on, vex off.
Phoenix says we were on time today. You know what? We're always on time, regardless of what the clock says, because that's the time we decide to do it.
That's not how time works.
Obviously, I don't put much stock in how time works, because I'm like, 30
Typically-
seconds? Yeah? No? Oh, okay.
Typically, I mean technically, whatever time we say it is the time we start, because I don't have our times posted. So technically
We say 6:30.
in Twitch land, I don't have a valid time. I would like to point out that in Lost Ark, I put a particular character in front of the canvas on my base, and you know the people move occasionally.
Do they?
Yeah, his particular movement actually makes it look like he's touching the canvas. I did not know that in any way, shape, form, or idea, but I was just running by. Not that I am playing games while we're doing this, but I was running by and I was like, just bend down to the canvas and look like he's touching it. And then he stood back up and looked at and like kind of like shifted his weight like he was looking at it. I'm like, okay, that's cool.
Then he looked over at you like, oh wait, that's not an NPC.
And he looked at me and went,
And I looked at him.
He looked at me, and I looked at him.
Alright.
Minute 30.
So Restream says we have 0 viewers. But Phoenix is in there talking, so I know we have at least one.
We have
Hey Phoenix.
one on Twitch that I know of for sure. And my restream now says 1.
Does it?
Yeah.
Still said the chat client. Restream chat client says 0.
And-
Biggs is here. Hey Biggs.
Biggs is here, but my thing says we only have 1 viewer. Yeah, it says only Phoenix is in the chat. That's interesting.
Technology.
This is
Bat Brains is here on YouTube.
25.
Biggs says 40.
It does.
40 what, Biggs?
That's the seconds that he's seeing.
Oh.
10.
So they're about 10 seconds behind us. What we're seeing here.
So, yeah. It changes day to day. 2, and push the button.
Push the
Hello!
button. Hola.
Hola.
Hello and welcome to the live recording of Season 3, Episode 79 of the Berean Manifesto. I don't usually say the live part. I don't know why I said the live part. But anyway,
Because that you will have to edit out. So you need to do the whole thing that doesn't get edited out, or else it'd be really weird. Because you just say hello and welcome to episode, and you don't have to edit that for the other thing.
Hello and welcome to Season 3, Episode 79 of the Berean Manifesto. Faith, hope, and love for the modern Christian. I'm Pastor Bill, and I'm joined, as always, by Pastor Nooms. How are you, Pastor Nooms? Still bald?
What? Boy?
I said, are you still bald?
The last time I shaved, yes. So let's be clear. I am not bald. I am balding. My hair is all up there. I have to shave it. Well, I won't say all.
So what happened is, Nooms is a very intense person. And at some point his hair went, we are done holding onto this hair, and just started dropping it.
No, it decided to just hang out. It just came off. I have more hair on my chin.
I said holding.
I know. Yeah, almost only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades.
And ponies.
No. When would almost... Why would almost be for ponies, sir?
I don't know. Alright, so how was your week?
Not till we figure out what you're talking about with ponies.
I have no idea what I'm talking about with ponies. I don't know. How was your week?
Ponies.
Your week was ponies?
No, my week was good. I marked a lot off of my board this week, which is always good. You guys can't see my board except for a little tiny corner right here. And sometimes if I move the camera just so, you can see the little man that's drawn right here, but you can't see him tonight, so sorry. I did take down some artwork.
No man for you.
Some artwork. My kid's artwork that was here forever, and put up a little Sunday, Monday. I don't understand direction. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday board.
I know you don't. You're the navigator when we play games.
So I can write my meeting times, so that way the family, when they comes into my office, they're like, oh, meeting. And so my wife knows when my meetings are, and so yeah. My week was pretty good though. Work was good. Went to my parents today. We hung out with them for a while. Rain, who occasionally joins us, my daughter, graduates 6th grade tomorrow, so we have to go to her graduation. So that's gonna be interesting.
Nice.
But everything's good. Just busy. How was your week?
My week was alright. I got a new keyboard.
Actually, there's no more.
There's no more because I got red switches instead of blue or brown, and so there's not a click halfway down. It's just a spring-loaded switch with no response halfway on the push. There is a slight when you let go of the key, where the spring is going back into place. You can hear the spring going back into place. Probably most people wouldn't be able to hear it, but I can hear it every time I let go of a key. I can hear the spring going back into place, which is fine. It's not that big of a deal. Yeah. So I got my new keyboard, and it actually comes apart into 2 pieces.
It's ergonomic.
It's ergonomic, but then it also comes apart.
Ergonomically.
Ergonomically. So that for, if you've got a big belly, and you need more ergonomical space, then you can have more ergonomical space.
Actually, it has nothing to do with your belly and everything to do with where your shoulders actually sit. Because people who have different shoulder sets, your hands are naturally more out when you're typing than people who are slender shoulders. So it's actually the broadity of your shoulders, not necessarily your belly.
But using a traditional keyboard, I was having to tuck my arms into my belly to reach the keys to type. And
Yeah,
now
I
with the
have to.
ergonomic keyboard, I slightly have to pull in my belly unless I separate the keyboard pieces, and then I can just rest my arms naturally
Because of how my flaps are. Um, I don't know what to call. Um, I I actually have to do the same thing with one of my arms and pinch my body to type traditionally. Um, but I've done it for so many years, it's weird. I have my work keyboard is more ergonomic and everything's at an angle
Yeah.
where I don't have to do that. But for this one, um, I do technically.
Nice.
But I used to have one that had like the full split in the middle and was actually like this, and it's the most comfortable thing. Welcome, Zadie.
Zadie's here now on Twitch.
So, yeah.
All right, so here's this week's shirt. We've got, how many Sundays do we have left before Pride? Just
One.
next Sunday?
Mm-hmm.
No, we have 2 more Sundays.
2 more Sundays?
22nd,
Yeah, two
then the
weeks.
29th.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so 2 more Sundays. So this is this week's shirt. It says known in the horizontal and then loved in the vertical, and making the shape of a cross. Known and loved.
Phoenix says she hates it.
Not my favorite so far. That's
says,
fine.
She says you look like garbage.
She didn't say that. She just said not her favorite. It takes different styles for different people. So I made different styles of shirts. So anyway, this is this week's shirt. And we will be at Pride on the 4th of June. So if you're coming to Dallas Pride, come and see us. If you're not coming to Dallas Pride, then pray that God would give us favor and that the people that need to know God loves them would be there. Too much gray. It's a gray shirt, Biggs. It's a gray shirt. That they would be there and that we could minister to them, hug them, love them, let them know that not all Christians are probably unintentionally, hopefully unintentionally, hateful, but that, there is love, and God is love, and we love them. There you go. All right.
Yeah.
So now it's time for getting to know the pastors, and I have
a new deck.
A new deck of a 2nd edition interview deck.
I have to agree with that. Red as the background would be pretty good.
I think these shirts come in. I got like pink and a bluish color. There's gray color. I can't remember what all. Anyway. All right, here we go. If you had a personal mascot, what would it be?
Now, is this one of those where you pick a mascot based on what you want to be? Like, we're the Tigers because we're ferocious. Or is this more of a, this is what reality is, and so this is what I am?
I would imagine it would be something that you relate to. Like a mascot based off of who you are, not who you want to be.
Yes, I will agree with Biggs. He is the Grandiosa. So,
Grandiosa.
He's the big bear.
The big bar.
The big burr.
Oso. Grande.
Spanish.
Yeah, oso is Spanish for bear. Anyway.
Grande. I just am saying it wrong. It's the right word.
Okay.
I just don't even speak English right.
Hey, don't spreck into nothing.
I love, someone one time said something to me about, you don't do well pronouncing words that aren't English. And I looked at the person and was like, have you ever heard me speak normally? Like, I don't pronounce English well, homie. Like,
I don't even do English well.
I don't do that well.
I butcher my first language.
Yeah, I have mad respect for anyone who speaks multiple languages because I can't speak one correctly. Um, hmm.
An animal mascot.
So I would have to say if we're picking an animal based on what we would want to be and something that would um, kind of shows our, I won't say core beliefs, but our thought processes and things. I would have to say a dragon, just because I've always felt very connected to dragons, and um, typically their ideals for most mythoses, not all, but most, line up pretty closely with mine. Um, but what do you think?
I think my mascot's an armadillo.
Armadillo.
Yeah.
Can you explain why?
Um, I'm pretty guarded as far as letting people in. It takes a lot of proving before I'll let you in, and just like an armadillo. But then once you've proven yourself, I'm pretty sweet and loyal and kind. And then I can be ferocious with my nails, and I can be if I have to be, not have to be, but if I'm pushed too hard, I can open up a can of leprosy on your butt.
I
Um,
I have to agree with Biggs
you
that
want
I
to see
would
me
like to
roll up
see
in a
you roll
ball?
up in a ball. Um, because what you just explained, without the rolling up in a ball, um, you as a possum. Um,
Possums don't carry leprosy,
possums carry everything.
and they're not sweet. Possums are not sweet.
Yes, they are. They can be very good
Even,
boys.
even when you get to be friendly with them, they're still like,
So is a cat. Have you met Anyanka?
I didn't choose a cat.
Oh, I'm just saying, like, saying you're mean. That's all I'm saying.
I'm mean. Why am I mean?
You're mean. I would like to see you roll up in a ball, though.
Okay, want to see me roll up in the ball?
Mm-hmm. Um, like hardcore, like right now. Do it. It's like the internet's new thing. It's not do a flip. It's roll up in a ball.
It's roll up in a ball. Do the ball. Roll up in a ball.
Do the
I want
ball.
to see you ball.
Do a ball thing.
Do the ball thing. I'm sorry. The what? The what? What?
Uh-huh.
What are we? What is this trend? What are we doing?
We're gonna need some clarification on this trend.
Oh,
Okay.
we're dipping things in soy sauce.
No, we are not. No, we are not. I did not participate in that, and will
I didn't either.
probably never participate in that. Um,
Okay, so tonight's episode is called
oh.
Bat Brains on YouTube says bald, but don't cry while you're there.
Mm. Now, see, I could take this two ways. I could take this the way of bawling is crying, like that funny, punny way that y'all live your lives. Um, or I could take it as
We are a pretty fantastic family.
she could completely see you balled up and crying. Um, so I'm not sure how to take what she said. But I'm gonna assume it was the puntasticness of just how you guys breathe. It's ugh,
It's a pun. It's a pun a minute over here.
it's a something.
All right, so tonight's episode is called Still, and so let's start in 325 AD. And Noobs, you go ahead and tell a story from 325 AD.
325 AD. Let me think. What could have happened in 325 AD? I think there was a council.
Mm-hmm.
So it's funny. For clarity for everyone who is listening that might not know, this is my favorite story, probably from all of church history. This is one of my favorite stories. And Pastor Bill today is like, he sent me his notes, and he's like, this is what we're talking about. By the way, do you know what this term means? And I was like, no, I was about to have to Google it. So go ahead. And he was like, well, it was an Egyptian person.
Well, the Bishop of Egypt.
Yeah, the
not
Bishop of
necessarily
Egypt. He wasn't necessarily. Yeah, true. Sorry. A bishop in Egypt had a belief that Jesus was not God. Would you like to tell the specific of what the belief states, and then I'll tell the story around it when he was pushing it?
Arianism teaches that Jesus is not, was not, never was, never will be God. That he was the first of God's creations, and that he served the purpose of coming to earth to teach us how to be right with God, and all things were created through Jesus, and that Jesus then ascended to the right hand of the Father, but just a little lower than God. And this is what Arianism teaches in a nutshell.
If for those of you out there that have listened to the podcast for a long time, you already know where this is going.
You've heard the story.
You've heard this story, but it's a great story, and I begged to get to tell it again, even though we've told it. So, at this council, where all the bishops had come together to make decisions on church leadership like they were doing in those times.
In a place called Nicaea.
This is the same area, the same type of council that decided which books of the Bible make up the Bible, what, different things like this. So they were discussing, and one of the things that got brought up was this whole thing about Jesus not being God. And there was...
The specific topic was the Trinity.
The Trinity, yeah. And this particular bishop brought up, well, Jesus isn't, here's the reason, blah, 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 and got really kind of loud and heated about it, and some people viewed it as disrespectful. One of the people who viewed it
not disrespectful to the discourse.
No, not disrespectful to God.
To Jesus.
Yeah. So, to be clear, at the Council of Nicaea, the emperor was there. And any physical violence in front of the emperor was a death sentence. But knowing this, a gentleman named Nicholas, who is better known as Santa Claus.
He was the Bishop of Myra.
So St. Nicholas walks across the room.
Not a saint at this point.
Not a saint at this point, right. But the person we now know as a saint.
Because of the miracle that happened in this event.
Yeah, because of the supposed miracle. Walked across the room and smacked him so hard in the mouth it knocked him over. Knocked him right out of his chair. And that's my Santa Claus. After this point, because of creating violence in front of the emperor, he was, of course, arrested. And in that night, supposed miracle, I don't know the validity, that's why I'm not going to call it a miracle, but supposedly when they changed his clothes to put him into prison, the guards the next morning came up and he was wearing a whole new set of white clothes, and they were like, "Who gave that to you?" And it's like, well, I'll give you a hint. And so
they were like, we're here to take you to the executioner, except that's not what you were wearing when we locked the cell.
Yeah. So how did you get those clothes? Oh, well, I can't remember. Was it Mary or Jesus that he said visited him?
I
don't remember off the story. I'm sorry. But he had a visitation, and the person gave him clothes. And so because of that, the emperor was like, well, we're not killing him today. And pardoned him. And that is also how, in order to become a saint in the Catholic Church, you must have miracles must happen to you, from you, around you, etc., etc. And so because of that event, that is the miracle that was attached to him that allowed him to become Saint Nicholas that we know
After he died.
after he died, and my Santa Claus. So that's
Which
my
was then
Santa
taken
Claus.
away from him hundreds of years later because of the Santa Claus lore,
Mm-hmm.
and then was restored later back to him because that's stupid.
It's not his fault. Yeah. Um, but anyway, so the reason that we're saying still is because I'm assuming this is why we're saying it, because I didn't talk to you about this part. The problem is we are still to this day dealing with people who believe that Jesus was just an angel or just a prophet or etc., etc. Um
Right. So there's this newish movement called the Torah Movement. And originally it didn't start in Christian circles. It started in secular circles by people who saw the value of Old Testament beliefs and decided to start keeping Torah. They don't consider themselves Jews. They don't consider themselves Christians. They don't consider themselves religious in any way. They just saw the value of Torah. And then it spread into becoming a religion. And then Christians started joining this Torah movement, and then no longer considering themselves Christians anymore because now they no longer believe that Jesus is God, and they don't believe in the need for the propitiation of sin through crucifixion and sacrifice, even though,
that's
it
the whole
perfectly
crux of the
lines up
Torah.
with the Torah.
So kind of the whole point of the old law.
Yeah. So I just wanted to point out some scriptures where we talk about how we know Jesus is God, right? Or at least he was before he became a man, because why didn't I put that in my notes? The Bible talks about him giving up divinity to become a man. And then Paul talked about that man then being exalted back to the position of above everything, Godhood.
And you can't give up what you didn't ever have.
That's true. You can't give up what you didn't have. So, and these people that have these beliefs, they're tricky, they're tricksy, because they will call out John 1:1, and they will say, yeah, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, but that doesn't mean the Word was God. Except when we go read John 1:1, John 1:1, and we're going to read through 3. It says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and that's where they stop quoting it. But the next part is, and the Word was God.
Mm-hmm.
He was with God in the beginning. All things were created through him, and apart from him, not one thing was created that has been created. So the mental gymnastics that have to go on to quote John 1:1 as part of your defense to claim that Jesus isn't God is staggering. And if you're looking at that and you're going, I don't understand, what is this word thing? So if we stay in the same chapter, John 1, and we go down to verses 14 through 18, okay? The Word became flesh and dwelt among us. We observed his glory, the glory as the one and only Son from the Father, full of grace and truth. John testified concerning him and exclaimed, "This was the one of whom I said, the one coming after me ranks ahead of me because he existed before me." Indeed, we have all received grace upon grace from his fullness, for the law was given through Moses. Grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. No one has ever seen God, the one and only Son, who is himself God and is at the Father's side. He has revealed him. Now, that's in the CSB. Verse 18 there, the phrase, who is himself God. It makes me uncomfortable that they included that in the CSB translation because it's not in the majority manuscripts. That's in a minority manuscript. If you go read the King James, it's not even there. It's not part of the original Greek the manuscript Greek that they used to make the New Testament in King James's time. And even now, it's not the majority manuscript. It's a minority manuscript. So it makes me uncomfortable. I believe the phrase. I believe that. You should pull out my hard copy Bible. I believe that phrase that Jesus is God, but it makes me uncomfortable to use that minority manuscript chunk just because it agrees with, the way we believe. It's not really how you're supposed to be translating the Bible, but that's my personal belief, not, anything else. Okay. So clearly from John chapter 1, we can see that Jesus is God. Jesus was God. In the beginning was the Word. And I've always personally, not always, but for the last decade or two, I've replaced that word word with the word motive because we've conflated in our religious beliefs the word word meaning Bible, the Word of God, and then we equate this is Jesus in my hands, and that's simply not the case. But motive actually expresses the concept that's being taught in John 1:1. So in the beginning was the motive, and the motive was with God, and the word and the motive I almost said the word, and the motive was God. He was with God in the beginning. All things were created through him, and apart from him, not one thing created that was created has been created. The motive became flesh and dwelt among us. Well, why does that fit? Well, because you do things because you're driven by a motive. You have this motive to do something. The motive of creation, the reason why God created
And
was
and and
Jesus.
and that word logos is something said, by implication a topic, also
Right.
reasoning or motive, by extension a compulsion, that's not the word compulsion, a
Compulsory? I don't have
comput
it pulled up.
comput COMPUTATION. Specifically the
Computation?
yes, thank you. Specifically the divine expression that is Christ, account, cause, communication, concerning doctrine, uh, matter, mouth, preaching, question. There's a whole list of words that it can be.
Yeah.
The
All of that to
utterance.
say, it's not just the
Yeah,
thing that comes out of your mouth, it's the thing that comes out of your mouth and why.
yeah.
What's the why behind it? And so that's what that is. And that becomes flesh. Well, that is Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus becomes flesh. He is that thing. And it was in the beginning, the chiefest of time, you know, the first and foremost.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll give the Torah movement revelation. Well, I'll kind of half give it to them. I'm sorry, I didn't put it in my notes. I gotta pull it back up. Rightful layer in Ephesus, Smyrna. Thinking it was Philadelphia, but that's not right. Maybe it only makes sense in the King James. Sorry, guys. I do like the lag time.
What?
The lag. I don't like the lag when I had to look something up because I forgot to put it in my notes.
Oh.
All right, yeah. Revelation chapter 3, verse 14, it says, "And unto the angel of the church of the Laodiceans write, These things saith the Amen, the faithful and the true witness, the beginning of the creation of God." And I'll give them that in English, that sounds a whole lot like Jesus was the first thing God created. But in Greek, the idea being expressed is chief. Principality, magistrate, power, principle, rule. The ruler of the creation, the magistrate of the creation of God, the principality of the creation of God. It's the person who starts it. It's the person who oversees it. Used in this context, it doesn't mean the first thing to be created. And in King James's time, they probably understood that turn of phrase to mean what it means. But when we read it face value today, I'll give them that verse sounds like Jesus was a creation, the first of the creations. But that's definitely not what's being said there. And even people that try to defend this Torah movement, they'll say things like, "Well, I don't need any of that Greek stuff. I've got my King James. That's all I need. I'm good. I don't need any of that Greek and Hebrew stuff. I've got all I need right here." And I'm like, that's how you lead to misunderstandings of translation, because the King James in your hand wasn't written using the same vernacular that you speak now. 2, none of the cultural context of what's going on in the people that wrote and who that's wrote to. You don't understand that cultural context, right? And so for cultural context, let's turn to, let me make sure this is the right note that I'm about to talk about. Yes. We're going to turn to John chapter 8, verses 48 through 59. Big said Revelation. Oh, what was the verse in Revelation?
What? Where did Big say that?
On Twitch, he wrote Revelation.
Why didn't Restream pick that up?
I'm looking at Restream. Biggs, it was Revelation chapter 3, and verse 14 was the verse that sounds in the King James. If we want to read it in the, or was it 14? Yeah. If we want to read it in the CSB, it says, "Write to the angel of the church in Laodicea, thus says the Amen, the faithful and true witness, the originator of God's creation." The originator. Right? That word makes more sense in modern vernacular with what the message of that verse is. Okay, so for cultural context, now we're going to turn to John chapter 8, verses 48 through 59. And this is a cultural context thing that I see missing in their understanding. They'll bring this up even. Starting in verse 48, the Jews responded to him, Jesus, aren't we right in saying that you're a Samaritan and have a demon? It's fighting words, first off. You don't come to a teacher, a rabbi who has, hundreds of followers and call them a Samaritan, a demon-possessed Samaritan. That's just, them's just fighting words. I'm surprised Peter didn't pull his sword right then and there.
Yeah.
So in 49, Jesus replies, I do not have a demon. He didn't say he wasn't a Samaritan. You notice that? He didn't even touch that. He was like, I'm not touching your racism with a 10-foot pole. I do not have a demon, Jesus answered. On the contrary, I honor my Father, and you dishonor me. I do not seek my own glory. There is one who seeks it and judges. Truly I tell you, if anyone keeps my word, he will never see death. Then the Jews said, now we know you have a demon. Abraham died, and so did the prophets. You say, if anyone keeps my word, he will never taste death. Are you greater than our father Abraham, who died? And the prophets died. Who do you claim to be? If I glorify myself, Jesus answered, my glory is nothing. My Father, about whom you say he is our God, he is the one who glorifies me. You do not know him, but I know him. If I were to say I don't know him, I would be a liar like you. But I do know him, and I keep his word. Your father Abraham rejoiced to see my day. He saw it and was glad. The Jews replied, you aren't 50 years old yet, and you've seen Abraham? Jesus said to them, truly I tell you, before Abraham was, I am. So they picked up stones to throw at him, but Jesus was hidden, and he went out of the temple. All right. So this phrase, I am, Jesus just literally called himself God.
Mm-hmm.
Just point blank. Those words, I am, you don't even say them in their culture because of the fact that God refers to himself as I am.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You don't even say things like, I am ready to go to the store. That's not a phrase they would have used because it had the words I am in it. They would have chosen a different phrasing because that's the name of God. And Jesus didn't just say that. He called himself that. And so there's that cultural context of, well, Jesus just called himself God. That's why they picked up the rocks to stone him. Because he just made the biggest heretical statement in their culture, period. Right? He called himself God. And instead of understanding that and seeing that, the Torah movement defenders then pivot to Exodus. Why is that not in my notes too? Why are my notes missing notes?
I don't know what you did, homie.
I don't know what I did either. I've got notes in my head that aren't on my page. Exodus chapter 3. Right? And so they'll go to Exodus chapter 3 and they'll bring up this story and it'll say, meanwhile, Moses was shepherding the flock of his father-in-law Jethro, the priest of Midian. He led the flock to the far side of the wilderness and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. Then the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of fire within a bush. And that's where they stop reading. And they said, you see there? It was an angel of the Lord in the bush, not God. It was the angel of the Lord who called himself I am. And so that was Jesus in the bush, but that wasn't God in the bush. But then if you keep reading. So we stopped at verse 2. Now, let's finish verse 2. As Moses looked, he saw the bush was on fire, but was not consumed. So Moses thought, I must go over there and look at this remarkable sight. Why isn't the bush burning up? When the Lord saw that he'd gone over to look, God called out to him from the bush, Moses, Moses. God speaks through the bush. It's God talking. It may have identified it as an angel of the Lord inhabiting the bush, but that's God's voice coming out of the fire. God calls himself I am in this statement. It repeatedly says, God said, God replied. Even when it gets to the I am, it says, God replied to Moses, I am who I am. Right? And so it's these mental gymnastics to try to defend this theology that leads you away from Christ, away from faith in Christ, and into this place where, remember we talked about when Paul talks about circumcision, physical circumcision, he talks about you're picking up a piece of the law, and when you do that, when you pick up one piece, you're then required to carry out all the law, and when you do that, you've made the work of Christ null and void, of no effect. There was no point in Jesus coming. And you're choosing to give up everything Jesus came and did. And that's a dangerous place to be, not because I think you can lose your salvation, right? Because once you truly believe, you believe. And those who leave us, they never truly believed. So if you are able to be convinced by a snake oil salesman that Jesus isn't really God, and that's not what the Bible means, and you're be able to convince of that, you probably didn't believe to begin with, because once you believe, you believe. There's no one can come to me right now and say, you see there, Jesus doesn't exist, and that's not how, blah, blah, blah. You can't convince me of that because I wasn't convinced to believe it. I believe it because I believe it. It's faith. I don't need evidence. I don't need you to tell me something different. I believe it to be the truth. I wasn't mentally convinced of it through some gymnastics of logic. That's not how faith works. There are those that believe religious statements because they were convinced to believe them, or they were coerced into believe them, or they were, feared into believing them, coerced into making statements that they didn't actually understand, right? And this is one of the reasons why we support deconstruction as an organization, because if you were coerced and you're actually not headed for eternity with God, you should suss that out now instead of when it's too late, right?
Because
but
so
this
often
Torah movement thing, it's just it's
weird. Yeah, it's yet another one of those movements where it doesn't even, like, as it's happening, you're like, wait a second, what the?
Yeah.
Those two things, like, don't even match.
Now we're not, and just to be clear, we're not talking about the Hebrew roots movement.
No,
there is a
that's different.
Hebrew roots movement that very, very intensely believes that Jesus is God and He is Lord, but what they believe that to be a true disciple of Christ, you need to live like Christ did, and Christ lived according to precepts that He found in Torah.
Yeah.
Right?
He was a rabbi, so he followed Torah.
Right. So that's what the Hebrew roots movement believes, that for my own physical edification and to truly satisfy, at the end of the day, when I look in the mirror and I say I'm a true disciple of Christ, I need to do X, Y, Z. Not because salvation is tied to it, not because righteousness is tied to it, but for my own satisfaction, for myself. I need to keep Torah. And that's perfectly fine. You're allowed to say, I'm not going to drink alcohol today because I believe that's bad for me. I'm going to do this today because I believe that's good for me. You're allowed to do all of that. All of that. The dividing line is when you start saying things like Jesus isn't God and didn't need to die for your sins, and start literally teaching a different gospel than what's taught by Paul and the other apostles here in this tiny portion at the back of the Bible. It's, compared to the rest of the Bible, it's this tiny portion. So yeah.
And it's something that, so often we deal with in the modern world. People trying to redefine or change the meaning of. And oftentimes we have to look at the whole, like, okay, well, the Spirit, the Holy Spirit told me this. And you're like, but that is completely opposite of the foundings of the teachings in the Bible. If something is completely opposite Scripture or the Bible, however you want to look at that, that's where we have to go. Does that truly shake out? Especially if you start writing New Testaments to justify what you want to do. And would you like to answer, Juno? And
sure,
hi, Juno. It's been a minute. How you doing? Also, side note.
We had a question on Twitch from Juno Malone who asks, "How do you pronounce Ecclesian?" Well, you pronounce it Ecclesian, and don't worry, I get that question a lot. So here's what happened: is the Greek word for church or community is ekklesia. Ekklesia. So it should be ecclesian, right? But that doesn't have an English ring to it. And so I changed it to Ecclesian for our purposes. But it is Ecclesian coming from ecclesian, coming from ecclesia, basically meaning of the church. So there you go. Of the church or of the community is basically what Ecclesian means. So
which is also why when
church house, of the community house.
When Pastor Bill made our website, ecclesianhouse.com, I tried to spell it for about 6 months, and then was like, we're gonna have to do something.
Then I got our ekk.house.
Yeah.
URL and email addresses and all that, because
Ecclesian House and dyslexia
somebody
don't go well
spell
together.
Ecclesian over and over and over and over again.
I couldn't get into my own email.
That's news it. Dude, how do you spell that again?
Yeah. Anyway, yes, thank you for the question. You're welcome for the answer.
All right. Do you have anything else you want to add? I know you were.
No, I was wrapped up with my thought process. I wrapped up before I went to Juno's question, but it definitely is something that I've actually had a couple conversations over the last couple of days about things that don't necessarily make sense because what they call themselves isn't even matching what they are. Like things like the Torah Movement. But will ignore large parts of the Torah.
Yeah.
And everything else attached to the Torah will just focus on the parts that we like and ignore, so it's interesting when we
the really interesting part about the whole thing is that Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, James, Peter, Paul, all these people, they were Torah keepers.
Right.
It was Torah keepers who wrote the New Testament and said, we were given the laws of Moses through, by God through Moses, but now grace and truth has come through Jesus. And Paul said, no, I don't hate the law. I love the law. The law taught me right from wrong. But now I'm under the grace of Christ. And while everything may not be good for me, I'm free to do whatever I want. And while everything may not edify me, I'm free to do whatever I want. Now, should I? Well, no, because there's things that want to kill me. There's things that will literally kill me and literally lead me away from where I need to be. But I could, if I wanted to. And I think a lot of people don't get that about the gospel that the New Testament actually preaches. It is for freedom that Christ set us free. It's not for slavery. He didn't set us free from the bondage that we were in so that we could just be in a new bondage. He set us free so that we have freedom. We can choose to do whatever we want. It's not necessarily good for us, right? But we have the freedom to. Anyway. That's a whole nother topic and a whole nother rant.
Whole nother topic that we've gone down a couple times, so we can
be aware and careful out there, because the Bible warns that from the get-go there were people who were teaching other gospels, and that will just continue to ramp up. People will continue to bring just completely twisted things that they think they've heard from the scriptures. And honestly, when you talk to a Torah movement person and you talk to a Muslim, there's not really much difference between the way the two of them see the world. They talk about Jesus the same way. They have worldviews that are very similar. So it's not really a new thing at all. It's a bunch of old things regurgitated into a new package. And it's not right. It's weird, and honestly, you won't hear me say this a lot, but it's wrong. I don't say that a lot because I think it's up to you to decide. But this is one that is just point blank wrong.
Yeah.
So there you go. All right. So this podcast comes out every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Wherever you get your podcasts. And we also record it live on Sunday nights at 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook. And you could go to our website, ekk.house, to find out which Twitch, which Facebook, and which YouTube that you can go to participate live. What are you laughing about? Did I say something wrong again?
No. You say it. You say it correctly every week. But there's just something about the phrase "which Twitch" that makes my mind giggle, because it's like which Twitch, which Facebook, and just that which Twitch makes me giggle, because they're
it makes
close.
Me happy to say which Twitch.
I know,
as well.
And that makes me giggle as well. I'm in a good mood today. That's weird. Anyway, continue.
And then, as we've said, throughout, General Malone has a question, or Bad Brains on YouTube says, or Biggs says, these are people that are participating live in the conversation, and we would like to invite you to come participate live as well. So hopefully you can join us some Sunday evening at 6:30 p.m. And that's all we have for you this week. I love you, and I hope you have a great week.
Be safe out there, y'all.
And until next time.
And now, for our people who are still here, because this is the live broadcast section, and we have to do this little thing that allows for a buffer that we can have, because some of our streaming services require the buffer. In that 30-second buffer, we have a little song that we sing each week that Pastor Bill is already dancing to. He kicks it off, and then I follow through, because let's be honest, there's a delay, and if I don't follow him, it sounds really bad. So, and here we go.
Except you just talked so much that there's already a 30-second buffer, so we
doesn't
don't
matter.
have to do the song.
Oh no, we have to.
No,
I'll
we
stay
don't.
on for an extra 30 minutes. We're gonna do the song before we get off. So come on. Alright, fine, I'll sing the song. 30-second buffer, 30-second buffer,
What
30
happened
second
to
buffer.
we'll stay on for 30 more minutes?
Oh, we will until you sing. 30-second buffer, 30-second buffer, 30-second buffer.
Has it been 30 seconds yet?
No. 30-second buffer,
Yes, it
30-second buffer, 30-second buffer. Okay, go hit the buttons,
Alright.
Nooms.
Alright,
Okay,
push
bye.
the
I'll hit the buttons. I can do both parts.